Monkey is the newest hero in BTD6 and is incredibly strong if used correctly, so here are 5 strategies to get the most out of him. Up first, we have Monkey Avengers, a pairing that works surprisingly well for multiple reasons, but more on that in a bit. We'll get through the early game however necessary. On beginner maps, this can just be a ninja, but on harder ones, you'll need multiple monkeys to get through. It doesn't really matter, but we'll get Dan down as soon as we can. And once he hits level 3, we'll transform him into his alter ego, the Masked Macaque. He deals more damage at the cost of attack speed, gets a lightning attack that handles grouped balloons, and can pop camos and leads. Very useful for the early game. And from here, we'll work towards getting a 0-2-3 Enforcer. This guy will help out a bunch with the rushes in the 30s, and we don't have to worry about keeping him away from other monkeys because we can teleport them away later using Dan's level 7 ability. For now, we'll just get another Enforcer and prep for the round 40 Moab. You can do this with a Berserker Brew or Jungle Drums Village. I went with a Village because I didn't know how much space we'd have, but a 300 Elk would help a bit more. Either way, you'll be fine. Just try to use Macaque's level 7 slam on the ceramics inside the Moab. This'll wipe them out, but even if you mistime it, you'll get a good amount of damage and a nice stun out of the ability. And now, we have a super simple and straightforward plan. We'll upgrade our Alchemist to a 420 stronger stim and the Village to a primary training. Technically, you can leave the Village as a 300 or even a 302, but I picked up Radar Scanner for the future. And here is where I like to transform Macaque back into Dan Monkey. He doesn't have camo detection, so the Village is nice, but he can teleport other monkeys around the map. So I moved every starting monkey outside of the Elk's range so he only buffs our Desperados. This teleport is so useful to get the most out of your monkeys, as you can clear up the best spots on the map for your most expensive towers. Speaking of which, we'll upgrade both of our Enforcers to Avengers next. These guys will smoke the mid game and let us save up for a Permabrew. No round should be an issue with this setup, but if you're scared, you can always use Dan's level 10 ability. This inspires nearby monkeys to deal more damage at the cost of attack speed, but also triggers life loss abilities, which our Avengers have. When activated, their range increases and they get 66% more attack speed, much more than what they're giving up with Dan's level 10. I didn't use this ability until around 80, and I'm not convinced it was needed, even with me having almost no other monkeys on the map. But around this time, we'll be able to upgrade the Elk to a Permabrew, and once he's done buffing our monkeys, teleport him outside of their range. Because Wanderer Desperados don't reduce stacks from each other, we can give them 15% more attack speed if we only have Dan and a Village inside their small circles. But getting this done in the early 80s gives us tons of money to use for the rest of the game, so I like to get a third Permabrewed Avenger and then get something to lock up the back of the track. Depending on the map, you might not need cleanup, but we have so many stalls between our Avenger and Hero that only super ceramics are going to get through, so adding something like a Glaive Lord or Bloonsolver solves that issue. And because we can permabrew him, we'll make our Glaive Lord a 520 for the extra attack speed. Don't forget that you can use Dan's level 10 ability to make the Avengers overpowered, and you should be able to coast around 100. Admittedly, the Avengers don't have much single target damage, and we can't stall the bad, so we need something else. The easiest solutions are a Spike Storm or First Strike, but there are plenty of things you could get away with, and this should easily get you the win. Moving on, we'll be using the permaspike. Dan Monkey has some pretty solid stalls that'll buy us some time to build up a spike pile and get our abilities back off cooldown. Once again, we'll start however possible, just getting through the early game. I did this on Dark Castle with a submarine, but pretty soon I got down Dan Monkey and transformed him the second he hit level 3. Now we just have to play for round 40. The great thing about permaspike is that it's so cheap and independent that we can really defend however we want. I upgraded my sub to a triple guns, went to the back of the track and bought a 103 long life spikes and buffed them both with Berserker Brews. This got us to the Moab, where I used Macaque's Slam to stun the blimp, giving us more time to pop it. But now we'll need a damage dealer. This can really be anything, but I opted for a Sentry Champion, getting a 402 Engineer down in a good spot and buffing the center with a 220 Village for the extra attack speed and camo detection. Unlike last run though, we will keep Dan in masked mode as we need his abilities to beat the tough rounds. The Slam is useful for stuns and damage, but Macaque's level 10 ability, Berserk Frenzy, can basically clear the screen. This is best shown on 63, where we slammed the first wave of ceramics, frenzied the second, and Slam was back off cooldown to help with the third wave. You can see that my second Slam was much more effective than the first, and that's because we want to hit the ceramics before they break open. I did a much better job on the last wave, which let us take out about half of the rush in the blink of an eye. But feel free to use these abilities whenever the Bloons get far. I did this in a different run where I saved all the way up for a Moab domination, and Berserk Frenzy destroyed any tough round like 76, 78, and even 81. Some Macaque can get you through the 60s just fine, and we can afford the Century Champion on round 69. Here, I repurposed our subs Alchemist to prioritize the Engineer and made him a 420 stronger stim for the extra attack speed. This is where I transformed our hero back into Dan. We no longer need his Frenzy to bail us out, so we're going to rely on his main attack in this form to stall BFBs and below, and you can see he actually knocks them back quite a bit. This will let you coast to the 80s, where we'll pick up a 105 permaspike, locking up the exit. I like to buff him with a jungle drums, and you can either make your elk a 420 or a 301. The Berserker Brew is more than enough, but if you have the money, Stronger Stim does make it even better. Then we'll move any unnecessary towers out of the elk's range. For me, this was just the submarine, but it could be all of your starting monkeys depending on the map. And I upgraded our village to a MIB to make sure our engineer could pop every type of bloon. But now it's time to add more stalls. We'll get 2 024 Moab presses and a 024 Relentless Glue, all set to strong to slow blimps down even more. This will give us an obnoxious amount of time to break them down, and Dan will keep sending them back to the entrance. This is already great and could probably win, but we still have the 90s left, which give us tons of money. And what better combo is there than getting a call to arms for a Sentry Champion? This ability gives extra pierce and attack speed to every monkey on screen, and the Engineer double dips on this buff, as his turrets attack faster and he places more turrets because their spawn time is based on his attack speed. And because we have so many stalls, we can use this ability basically every round. Almost nothing made it to the spike pile in the back, but what blew my mind was Dan hit level 19 on round 99 and started giving us a mana shield in chimps. I didn't know that was possible, and because we stalled so well throughout the 90s, we'll have a huge wall of spikes for round 100, so there's no way the bat is getting through. Before we move on to the third strat, I want to show how to get Dan to Monkey. For these 2 weeks, he's only available in the He-Man pack in the store. This gives you Dan to Monkey and his skin He-Man right away, but in 2 weeks, he'll be available for monkey money just like any other hero. It had to be done this way for licensing reasons, so you can wait 2 weeks and use him then, or you can pick him up now in the store, and if you do, consider using creator code Hbomb at checkout. It helps the channel out quite a bit. But back to the strats. Shifting gears, we have the classic Archsolver with a twist. As usual, we'll get through the early game, getting Dan down as soon as possible and transforming him into the Masked Macaque. For the rest of the early game, we'll beat the rounds while working towards a tack shooter and wizard. I like to do this by buying a 203 tack sprayer, then a 320 arcane mastery. Getting the cheap tack shooter first, especially on a bend, makes saving up for the wizard upgrades very easy. The only thing you have to look out for are the camos in the mid to late 30s. On easier maps, Macaque can handle them just fine, but on advanced or harder, he'll need some backup or well-timed abilities. I bought a 110 sniper, but you could also upgrade a Desperado or Dart Monkey. Anyway, we'll upgrade our tack shooter to an overdrive next and buff it with a 320 Berserker Brew. I like to do the Alchemist after round 39 ends because it guarantees the tack gets both potions at the start of the round, maximizing its DPS on the blimp. And if you have the money, you can pick up a 110 Glue Gunner as well. What we'll do here is wait for the overdrive to break open the Moab and use Leap on the ceramics inside. This will one-shot them just like we do if we were running Sada. But now we need to transition into the mid game. We'll get a village and rush radar scanner so our wizard can help out with camos. Then we'll transform our hero back to Dan to Monkey and teleport our monkeys to all be in range of the village. And we can move our starting monkeys out of the way so they don't steal any alchemist buffs. Now we'll upgrade the village to a 320 to make our overdrive much better, and we'll start upgrading our glue gunner to a 520 Bloonsolver. This isn't possible on every map, so if you're on one more difficult than this, we'll pick up Arcane Spike first. A 420 wizard is an amazing mid-game carry that helps us save up tons of money, but that'll prevent us from getting the Bloonsolver before round 63. So get ready to use Leap, Frenzy, and Leap again for those ceramics. If you are able to get the Bloonsolver before this though, you're in for a very easy game. Buff it with a 420 Alchemist and start upgrading your wizard. The goal is to get this guy to an Archmage, but feel free to give him a Berserker Brew after he's an Arcane Spike. It really ups his damage. This will smoke every round until 80. The ZOMG will get past the Bloonsolver, but that's nothing a quick Leap and Frenzy can't fix. Then, just a few rounds later, we'll be able to afford the Archmage upgrade, and we'll buff him with a stronger stim. At this point, we can put our hero in Dan mode and move our towers around to their ideal spots. The tack shooter should be below the track and ideally on a bender loop, and we want the Archmage in front to break open the blimps with the Bloonsolver behind it to clean up the super ceramics. It's not that big of a deal, but we might as well since Dan has a free teleport ability. Finally, we'll make a Tack Zone setup. We'll start by upgrading our overdrive to a 205 Tack Zone. but then we'll move it to the front of the track. This guy's job is to rip open the stronger blimps before they get to our Archsolver. And up front, we'll build a little buffing node. We'll give the Tack Zone a primary training village, a 410 embrittlement, and a 420 alchemist. It's kind of weird to set all this up when we had room for them by the rest of our monkeys, but it'll make sense soon. And this will do great except for round 99. I did struggle a bit with the fortified DDTs, so a Moab Glue, Main Moab, or Bloons Sabotage would go a long way. And for round 100, we'll let the Tack Zone do numbers to the bad, and once it floats out of his range, we'll teleport him to our main setup so he can attack again. And if you want, you can transform Dan so we can frenzy the bad as well. But letting the Tack Zone double dip on the bad like this makes it a super effective round 100 counter that also helps throughout the 90s, and I'm excited to see what people do with this in the future. Next, we have the best strategy of the video, Permabrew snipers. We'll beat the first few rounds with some starter monkeys, get Dan down ASAP, and transform him the moment he hits level 3. Then we'll get an early game carry. It can be anything. On this map, I went for a Dragon's Breath Wizard in one run and a Destroyer in another. It doesn't really matter. What's important is that it can deal with the Bloon rushes in the 30s and 40s and help break the outer layer of the blimp. We're getting ahead of ourselves though. We probably won't be able to go straight for these tier 3 upgrades, so we'll support the tier 2s with a 022 sniper. This will help bridge the gap to the Destroyer or Dragon's Breath upgrade, and afterwards, we'll upgrade the sniper to a 023 semi-automatic. This will smoke all the camo rounds and make round 40 a breeze. You can either stun the Moab with Macaque Sleep, or you can time it to one-shot the ceramics inside. Either way, you should be fine. We'll back this up with a 202 village, so everything has extra attack speed and our future snipers will be discounted. Then we'll get a Berserker Brew for our sniper and slowly upgrade him to a 025 elite defender. While not as powerful as he once was, this guy still carries the mid game, and we can activate his 4 times attack speed whenever we want with Dan's level 10 ability. Then we'll upgrade the Alchemist to a stronger stim and make the huge save up for Permabrew. Once again, this shouldn't be hard at all, as we can use Leap or Frenzy to take down any tough round. I got my Permabrew on round 81, and it was time to buff everything. Teleport this guy around the map so all of your monkeys get the good, and buy a 204 sniper set to first. I know it feels like you should set him to strong, but the rest of our snipers will have shrapnel, and they'll tear apart everything except for the Bloon in front, so that's what this guy is for. And I like to pick up some form of camo detection for him, like a reactor or shimmer up front so we can help with DDTs later on. Not mandatory, but we'll have the money so we might as well. Then we'll spend basically the rest of our money on 024 snipers, all in range of the village, and make sure they get permabrewed. The DPS on these guys goes crazy, but it gets cranked up even more when we use Dan's level 10 ability, Rabble Rouser. They have plenty of attack speed that they can trade for damage, and our elite defender goes Super Saiyan when this is active. I like using it for the fortified DDTs on 99, and once again on round 100 to take out the bad, but nothing should really get close to leaking, especially with this ability, and you'll have plenty of money for support monkeys. I picked up a Relentless Glue up front and still had 17k left over at the end. And our final strategy of the video is the Permacharge. The beginning of the game is the same as always, but we'll try to work in a Boomerang Monkey as one of our first few towers, ideally making him a 022. Not only is this a great early game defender, but he'll turn into one of our main damage towers later on. This will easily let us get Dan to monkey down, and we'll transform him as usual. Next, we'll upgrade our Boomerang to a 032 Bionic Boomer and follow it up with a 402 more glaives. These two pair well together, as the Bionic can tear apart strong Bloons like ceramics and the Moab, while the other will shred dense packs of weaker Bloons. This will put us in the 30s, where we might need help with camos depending on the map. Something small will work, like upgrading a Dart Monkey to a 032 triple shot or getting a 110 sniper set to strong. But next up on the list is getting a 320 primary training village. Here I got jungle drums first, but if you need help with camos, you can always go radar scanner and then jungle drums. Either way, this will bring you to round 40, which we can take out with a leap once again. It's almost time to save up for the Permacharge, but before that, we'll give our hero a Berserker Brew. This will let him attack much faster, and his knockbacks will go crazy later in the run when we transform him back into Dan. But after this 320 Alchemist, I went for the Permacharge. If you're on a harder map, you might need a strong carry, so something like a 420 aircraft carrier could work. But this save up is a bit easier since we have the turbocharge ability whenever we need it, on top of Frenzy and Leap. But with just this, we were able to afford the Permacharge on round 64 and never look back. This basically guarantees the rounds until the 90s, so we'll switch our hero back to Dan DeMonkey to have better stalls instead of damage. And I picked up some support by upgrading our elk to a 420 stronger stim and placed a 013 Moab Glue in the loop. The 70s and early 80s give you tons of money, which let us save up for a Glaive Lord super easily. These two monkeys are fun to pair together because the Permacharge can break open the tanky blimps, while the Glaive Lord will take care of all the ceramics inside. But it wouldn't hurt if our Permacharge had a bit more pierce and a shorter cooldown. And what better way is there to do that than upgrade our village to a primary expertise? It won't take too long to be able to afford this, and it makes the next few monkeys even cheaper. We'll upgrade our glue to a 024 relentless and back it up with two 204 Moab presses, all set to strong. With these upgrades, our stalls are elite, especially with the elk buffed Dan. Now, I finished the game with over 30k left over, so feel free to pick up whatever else you want. Maybe a Sabotage Ninja, Maim Moab, Symphonic Resonance, and or First Strike. The options are endless. Honestly, nothing really posed a threat for the rest of the game, and the only thing I did was alternate using Rabble Rouser and the Permacharge abilities. I figured using them at the same time wouldn't be the best, as Permacharge gives tons of extra damage, and Rabble Rouser gives extra damage at the cost of attack speed, so they'd eat into each other a bit. But even without picking up anything else, we easily beat round 100 and got the CHIMPS medal. But that was 5 Dan Monkey strats you need to try out. If you want to see the 5 easiest CHIMPS strats, click this video right here.